All right, we begin in South Africa, where, of course, the ruling ANC party has lost its majority and has now been forced to have to discuss coalition with other parties. You can see the results right there on your screen. 40% share of the vote, a significant reduction from what it was in 2019. The Democratic Alliance in second place, Jacob Zuma's party, former president, MK at 14.5%, and the Economic Freedom Fighters at 9.5%. What does that mean for the economy of South Africa as coalition discussions begin? We're happy to have Mr. Chris Hart, who is the executive chair of Impact Africa Investment. He joins us from South Africa right now. Good morning to you, Mr. Hart. Thank you so much for joining us. So I guess, what do you make of the election results? In particular, what do the results say about the ANC's handling of South Africa's economy?
Ahead of this election, and that was already reflected in the municipal elections, where service delivery, the municipal elections 3 years ago, where the ANC already lost the majority, if you like, of the municipalities. They got a 45% share of the vote then, and that sort of was a foreboding of what was to come. Unemployment is still rising, 33%. It's unbelievably high and unusual. In other words, there's no other country in the world that has such high unemployment. The causes are because of the policies that have been implemented by the ruling party. And of course, the electorate is seeking answers, and the ruling party was punished as a consequence of that. And so it's unlikely that we will see policy continuity, but we just don't know yet whether it's going to be a sharp turn to the left, which will then obviously exacerbate the problems that we see at the moment in the economy, or do we move back to what I call as a sensible centre, right, and actually start enacting policies that will actually give job creation at least a fighting chance.
Now, okay, so you've mentioned whether you'll see a sharp turn to the left or right. So I guess, do you see disruption to policy continuity in South Africa going forward, and what does that mean for the economy?
Absolutely. The fact that the ruling party has lost the majority, they can no longer rule with impunity. They will have to rule with a coalition partner and have to change some policies. There may even be a need to reformulate the budget that was put in earlier, because the budget there, you could say, emptied the coffers of the state. Effectively was an election budget. We now need to have something put in place that will be there to actually help solve the problems of the country. The biggest problem is that the ruling party has really been focusing on what I call as poverty alleviation, which is shifting resources to consumption, right? Whereas poverty reduction needs a shift of resources to investment, and effectively the poverty reduction measures are perpetuating the problems of poverty that they're designed to alleviate. So it becomes a vicious circle. Investment in the economy has been falling to the point that it's hardly covering depreciation, let alone new investment for expansion. And we certainly have seen economic growth below the population growth rate for at least more than a decade now. It's basically since the ANC shifted to a more African nationalist type of core policy departure point with the advent of Jacob Zuma as president 14 years ago, roughly 14 years ago, in 2008, where he took over the realm of power. We went from, you could say, a rainbow coalition, a rainbow nation, etc., which is centre-left, but still reasonably market-friendly policies, to something that's got a lot more financial repression. And the investors have responded, and the economy's responded, and now the electorate is responding to that as well.
You've talked a lot about unemployment. I read your recent article on the eve of the elections about how unemployment is still South Africa's biggest problem. Does whatever coalition come out of these talks encourage you on unemployment being reduced in the future?
It really depends on how the coalition discussions go, and whether the parties really appreciate that unemployment is in fact the biggest issue that needs to be tackled, because effectively we suffer a high crime rate. If we resolve unemployment, crime is a lessened problem. If we resolve unemployment, education problems reduce because people keep their kids in school for longer. Housing, people who are employed can sort their own housing out more easily than people who are unemployed. So this is why unemployment has become such a problem, because it's had an impact on so many other things. And we speak about poverty, inequality, and unemployment, but it's actually unemployment which has a poverty and inequality consequence. And it's not just problems, and we've been trying to alleviate poverty for too long now. And it's perpetuated the problem that we're trying to alleviate. And people have become frustrated. That would have thought that after 30 years of democracy, we should have seen an improvement in our standards of living and opportunities and hope, and we haven't. And South Africa had the very, very best chance to do so. We compare ourselves, if you like, to Rwanda, who at the same time suffered a devastating genocide, and they've actually taken the right policy decisions, or certainly more optimal policy decisions, and the effects are very, very, very stark. South Africa has been in decline rather than on the ascendancy from an economic point of view, whereas Rwanda has been on the ascending. Even Nigeria has taken excellent policy moves in terms of freeing up the economy and taking away the obstructions and problems that have become a free economy, and it actually is showing in terms of the actual growth and prospects in the economy. Much lower unemployment rate than South Africa, and these are important. South Africa's unemployment rate is self-inflicted. It was a choice taken by the current government, which has now lost power and needs to reflect on that.
Now, what about the risks to this coalition? Because, the Democratic Alliance is seen as a free market party, but also on the other side seen as a white minority party. The EFF is talking about scary things like nationalizing banks and seizing land and not giving. Jacob Zuma, his MK party, can the ANC work with these different ideologies?
Well, my sense is the ANC is in a very difficult position, because there's elements in the ANC that will leave if they actually make a coalition with the DA, and there's elements in the ANC that will leave if they make a coalition with the MK or EFF. In other words, they're really in a very, very difficult position at the moment. My sense is if they choose the populist route and take the sharp turn to the left, which is probably their gut, their instincts might take it to them because of how they've conducted themselves up till now. They will actually go into demise much quicker. The coalition will not last. The actual markets will in fact be there, and we go into the hands of the IMF very, very quickly, because I think every sort of resource has been been drained, as it were, up until now. It's really been consumption without growth and investment, and we don't have the resources and resilience to actually go through much more of that, and that means that we probably will face the IMF at some stage and further credit rating downgrades. If we move back to the sensible centre, we'll go back to the Mbeki years where the credit rating starts to improve. We'll come off the grey list, and we'll start to see investment come back into the country, and that's basically what we need. And that, to my mind, is the best route for long-term stability and restoration of the ANC. In other words, where people see the ANC as a potential solution to their problems, not just a revolutionary, we delivered you from apartheid type of message, but no other message that they can actually deliver to the electorate and population in general.
All right, just less than a minute to go. I really enjoyed your insights today. What other priorities will you feel the government should focus on beyond unemployment?
It has to be, it goes hand in hand with unemployment, but it has to be cutting back this wholesale looting, corruption, etc. We have to go back to actually getting value for our money, for taxes, cutting taxes, and effectively restoring the rule of law. And that's also important from an investment point of view, because the corruption is damaging trust, and trust is an important component of investor confidence.
Mr. Chris Hart, Executive Chair of the Impact Investment, joining us from Johannesburg. Really appreciate your insights on the latest coming out from South Africa as the coalition talks have begun. Thank you so much.